The frost hadn't yet melted from the barn roof when Harlan McCrae saw the shape stir beneath the hay. It was early, even for him, sky still bruised with night, the horses not yet restless. He'd come for feed, quiet as he always was, but something made the crows scatter from the rafters, made his breath catch in a way that wasn't cold. A cough, dry and muffled, then the whisper of straw and the rustle of fabric. He paused at the threshold, didn't speak. From the shadows, a woman's voice, rough as wagon wheels on stone, whispered, "Stay still, babies." And then, louder, braver, "We'll be gone before your son's high. Just needed somewhere dry." Harlan stepped forward. His boots crunched the hay. In the dim light between slats, he saw her, barefoot, chin lifted, a worn calico dress hanging off her like it missed the woman she'd once been. Beside her, a boy, maybe 7, fists clenched like he'd punched the world. A girl, 5 or so, curled into her mother's skirts with a cloth doll in her hands. And a toddler, too small to know fear, blinking up at him like he was part of a dream. He didn't ask names, didn't shout, just nodded once and left. 10 minutes later, he returned with a folded blanket, a tin of beans, and half a biscuit wrapped in cheesecloth. Set them by the barn door without a word, then walked back to the house through the frost-heavy dawn. They were still there by nightfall. Delia Vaughn didn't want his charity, but she took it, because the children needed it, and there was something about the man's silence that didn't feel like judgment. She'd known judgment, worn it like a second skin since her boots hit dry earth in Tallow Creek 3 days prior. The rancher she was supposed to marry had taken one look at her kids and laughed. "You didn't mention you came with a whole herd." She tried to explain. Letters were brief, life moved fast, and she didn't expect kindness. Only a place, a roof. She'd have worked for it. But he'd slammed the door and left her standing outside the depot, 3 pairs of eyes blinking up at her like she had answers. That night, they'd slept behind the chapel. The next, on a discarded quilt behind the saloon. Then came the barn. She thought maybe this man would run them off too. They all did, once they saw the children. But Harlan McCrae was a man of few movements and even fewer words. The second morning, he left a tin mug of coffee on the porch rail and returned to chopping wood. Delia sat 5 feet away and drank it in silence, her children half hiding behind her. "He doesn't talk much," she murmured to Caleb. "He's watching," the boy said. That evening, as the sun bruised the sky with rose and amber, Harlan brought them warm cornbread. Delia took it, cheeks red with something older than cold. She looked away as she ate, and he didn't press her for anything. Not thanks, not story, not even her name. She offered it anyway. "Delia, the boy's Caleb. Mabel's the quiet one. And that there's B." He nodded, chewing slow. "Harlan," he said. The syllables hung heavy between them, like a shared weight neither had asked for. In the days that followed, Harlan made space without invitation. The barn was swept, a cracked lantern left hanging, a bucket of warm water near the door at night. He never asked why they stayed. Maybe because part of him knew. Delia kept waiting for the kindness to turn. That's how it always went, softness first, then scorn. But it didn't come. Not from Harlan. The town, though, had sharper eyes. On Sunday, Miss Temperance Riggs spotted smoke curling from Harlan's chimney and wagged her tongue before noon bells. By Monday, the gossip had galloped faster than any horse Harlan kept. Folks whispered about the woman and her brood shacked up with a reclusive widower. "She's after land," someone said. "She's no better than a stray cat." Sheriff Amos Doyle rode out that afternoon, boots dusty, hat in hand. Found Harlan repairing a fence. "Folks are stirring," Amos said. "Temperance is claiming sin under your roof." Harlan didn't look up from his work. "Ain't no roof," he said. "Just a barn. And she's hungry. That's all I saw." That was all he said. Delia heard about it 2 days later when Caleb overheard the blacksmith's boy mimicking Temperance's shrill accusations. Her stomach dropped. She tried so hard to be invisible. That night, she left the barn and walked to the fence that bordered the house, needing air. Her eyes caught on a patch of worn wood, initials carved long ago, *E.M, and L.M, a heart that had begun to fade. She traced it with her fingers. "Etta and Lucy," came Harlan's voice from behind her. "My wife." My girl. Delia turned slowly. Gone. He nodded. Long time now. She didn't ask how. Didn't need to. Grief leave a smell in the air, thick as wood smoke. She swallowed hard. You should have run us off. I almost did, he said. And he shrugged. Then be try to feed me a piece of her cornbread. Couldn't say no to that. She smiled for the first time. A flicker of something she hadn't felt in months, maybe longer. Later, Mabel sat beside Harlan by the fire, silent as ever, and placed her doll on his lap. He didn't move, just watched the flickering shadows. Delia watched them both from across the room, heart strange and tight in her chest. She wondered when it had started to feel like a home. That night, the frost came heavier than before. Harlan lit an extra lamp and left it burning on the porch. Delia lay beside her children in the barn, wrapped in borrowed quilts, eyes wide open. She didn't sleep, and in the hush between night sounds, she crept outside, drawn by something old as instinct. The house stood still, golden with firelight. She crossed the porch, barefoot in the dirt, and opened the screen door just enough to slip inside. In the corner of the room, Harlan sat in a chair, asleep, one boot off, the other still half-laced. He lay on his chest, snoring like a baby calf. Delia didn't speak, just stared. Then her eyes drifted to the mantel above the hearth and froze. There, tucked beside an old photograph, was a charred wooden board, its surface newly carved. She stepped closer. 4 names, freshly etched. Delia, Caleb, Mabel, B. She backed away slowly, hand over her mouth. And for the first time in years, the tears came fast and silent. Not from shame, not from fear, from the unbearable weight of someone saying, "You belong." The flour sack slipped from Delia's hands and hit the ground with a thump, dust rising like smoke around her ankles. It wasn't the weight that had undone her grip. It was the silence that fell inside the general store the moment she walked in. Women stopped measuring ribbon. The old man behind the counter cleared his throat too loudly. And Miss Temperance Riggs, wrapped in her usual Sunday black, despite it being Wednesday, turned slowly from the pickles with a crooked smile. "Well, if it isn't McCrae's new house guest," she said, loud enough for the whole store to lean in. "Or should I say squatter?" Delia bent without a word, gathered the flour, and forced her jaw not to tremble. She felt every gaze burn through her spine. Outside, Caleb waited by the wagon, barefoot and red-faced. He'd begged her not to come into town. She hadn't listened. Now she wished she had. The moment they stepped outside, a boy near the well whispered something Delia couldn't quite hear, but Caleb did. He lunged, fists flying. The boy yelped and stumbled backward, nose bleeding, as Delia caught her son's arm in mid-swing. He was shaking with rage. "We're on every time," he muttered, eyes glassy. "Every town, every lie." Delia's grip on his wrist tightened. "We are not starting again." But even as she said it, the truth wavered behind her ribs like something trying to come loose. By dusk, word had spread back to the ranch. Sheriff Amos rode up with dust in his wake and a look on his face like a man caught between duty and decency. Harlan was feeding the pigs, sleeves rolled to the elbow. "They're stirring worse now," Amos said. "Caleb bloodied that boy good. And with Temperance wagging her tongue, it's only a matter of time before someone does more than whisper." Harlan looked up, slow and steady. "What do you want me to do, Amos?" "Send her on, or marry her, if you're feeling Christian about it. But they won't let this lie. Not for long." Harlan went still. He didn't answer, just returned to the feed bucket like the sheriff hadn't spoken. Inside the barn that night, Delia packed the little things: BEA's doll, Mabel's ragged shawl, Caleb's knife. She folded them quietly into a bundle and didn't cry. Mabel slept soundly beside her. Bea snored into the hay. But Caleb watched, sharp-eyed and tired. "You're doing it again," he whispered. "Running." Delia didn't look at him. "I'm keeping us safe." "No," he said, voice cracking. "You're scared. There's a difference." She nearly snapped back, but then she saw it, the tear he wiped away, fast, the fear behind his anger. He was just a child, pretending to be a man. And she was a mother pretending not to be broken. The sky was pale gray when she opened the barn door and stepped out, her bundle tight to her chest. She didn't expect him to be there, but he was Harlan, already at the gate, steam rising from his coffee like breath from a mule. "You leaving?" he asked softly. Delia kept walking. "It's better this way." "For who?" "For you. They'll come after you too. I don't give a damn about them." He looked at her, not angry, just tired. "You think shame's a stranger to me?" She stopped. "I lost my wife giving birth to our little girl," he said. "Lucy." "She made an hour. Etta didn't make it at all. That barn you sleep in? It was her foaling shed. I keep it standing 'cause tearing it down felt like forgetting." Delia turned, arms folded tight around the bundle. "I built this place with 2 hands and a hole in my chest," he continued. "And it's been empty ever since. You didn't bring shame, Delia. You brought breath." Her voice came out small. "They hate me. They don't know you. And you do." "I know enough," he said. "You could have begged. You didn't. You could have run sooner. You stayed. And every morning since you came, my house smells like life again." Delia took one step toward him. The bundle fell from her arms, unnoticed. "I'm tired," she whispered. "Then rest." She closed her eyes. "What do I do when they come for me?" "I stand between you and them," he said. "That's what a man does when something's worth keeping." She looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. That afternoon, under a sky that threatened rain but didn't deliver, Harlan carved 4 names into the fence with his pocket knife. His calloused fingers worked slow but sure. Delia, Caleb, Mabel, B. The wood drank the letters and like it had been waiting all this time. Inside, Harlan took a leather satchel down from a shelf he hadn't touched in years. Inside it lay a worn paper, a marriage certificate already signed by him, blank on the other side. "I had it drawn up after Etta passed," he said. "I don't want to trap you. I just want to give you something no one can take." Delia took the pen. Her hand trembled, but she signed. Not for security, not for shelter, but for the quiet knowing that, for once, she wasn't surviving, she was staying. A week passed before she dared walk into town again. This time, Harlan came beside her, Caleb on his other side like a shadow. Mabel held her hand. He pointed at everything like the world had just turned gold. People still stared. Miss Temperance narrowed her eyes. But no one spoke. Even Sheriff Amos just tipped his hat. "Afternoon, Mrs. McCrae." Delia blinked. She hadn't heard it spoken yet. Not out loud. Back at the ranch, she hung the flour sack by the stove. Caleb fed the chickens without complaint. Mabel was teaching Bee to say porch instead of porchy. That evening, Harlan fixed the hinge on the barn door, and Delia stood beside him, neither saying much. But when the sun dropped and the horizon turned to fire, he looked over and said, almost shyly, "Never thought I'd hear laughter in this place again." Delia smiled. "Never thought I'd have a name again." As night fell, the wind picked up. Somewhere in the rafters, a sparrow nested. The carved fence glowed pale in the moonlight, names catching shadows like secrets. And in the hush before the stars fully bloomed, Harlan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, hand-carved figure, rough and sweet, a little girl in a calico dress. He placed it gently into Delia's hand. "She's not Lucy," he said, "but she belongs here." Delia looked down at the carving, then up at him, eyes shimmering. "I reckon we all do," she whispered.